Hello again, movie lovers. Earlier today, I posted a video on some of the unknown and unpopular horror films in my collection that I think you should check out if you're a horror film fan. Right now, I want to do the same thing with some drama films. I think we're all familiar with some classic drama films, such as Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, or even Forrest Gump. But right now, what I want to do is tell you about some drama films that I think you may not have ever heard of, and I think that you should check out. So let's start off with Wild Hearts Can't Be Broken. This is a really good film. It's an inspiring, encouraging film about a young woman who does a circus act, and in doing the circus act, she becomes blind. And instead of giving up, she continues to do the attraction, to do the stunt at the circus, even after she becomes blind. It's a very inspiring and encouraging film. I highly recommend it. This was recommended to me by my fourth grade teacher, Mrs. Morris. It's a great film, and I think you'll really enjoy it. Up next, we have With Honors. This is a film starring Joe Pesci and Brendan Fraser. It's a film about a Harvard student who ends up having to cut a deal with a homeless man in order to be able to finish his thesis and graduate. It also stars a young Patrick Dempsey, and it also has, who I believe at the time was probably the heartthrob of the early 1990s, Moira Kelly. A very good film, very touching film, heartfelt film. I think you'll really enjoy this drama. Up next is The World According to Garp. I think this is a fairly famous book by legendary writer John Irving, but I don't know how many people know about the film. And this is an early role, 1985, of Robin Williams, one of his early film roles. I mean, had been doing television for a long time, but this is one of his early film roles. It's very neat the way this film was put together. After you get done watching this film, you actually feel it's much longer than it actually was, because of the way that it was put together and designed. But I think you'll enjoy this film as well. Also, for those of you that like an Iowa connection, Mary Beth Hurt from Marshalltown, Iowa, plays Robin Williams' love interest in this film. I Am the Cheese. Now, while the novel that this is based on, by Robert Cormier, is a much better novel than it is a film, it's still a fairly decent film. And what really attracted me to this film, what made me want to watch it, as well as own it and buy it, is it stars Robert McNayton. Now, I don't know if you know who Robert McNayton is by name, but I guarantee you probably recognize him. I'll put a little close-up of his face right there. Robert McNayton played Michael in E.T., the older brother. And other than E.T., this is the only film he had to his name for a very long time. So if you're a Robert McNayton fan and you want to see him in something other than E.T., this is about your only shot, although he did, about 3 or 4 years ago, get back into acting, and he did play in 2 recent films. I do not know the names of them, but here is a film right here from the 1980s with Robert McNayton in it. The Kissing Place. This is a film starring legendary television actors Meredith Baxter of Family Ties and David Ogden Stiers of MASH. And this is a film right here where, as a writer, and even as a reader, as a viewer, you can see how good this film could have been with better editing, with better revision than what it had. It's still a pretty good film. It's about a young boy who starts to assume that he may not be his parents' real son, and that maybe his parents had kidnapped him when he was a toddler. He starts having these visions and these nightmares and these memories of being somebody else's son, and he starts to remember being kidnapped by his parents, and he goes on this big long journey in order to find his real mother. It's has some unrealistic parts in it, and it definitely could have used, like I said, better revision and better editing. But it's still a pretty good film, and it has really good performances out of both Baxter and Ogden Stiers. The War, starring Kevin Costner and Elijah Wood. It also stars who I feel is a very underrated actor, Rainer Shine, who you may have seen in other films as well. The War is about a family living in the South, in the deep South, and they're a white family that's very progressive. They believe in equality, and they you have to fight. They end up having to fight a lot of others, of course, who wanted things to remain segregated and wanted things to remain, racist and unfair to the other races. While at the same time, their father deals with untreated post-traumatic PTSD, and it's a good film. I think you would enjoy it if you're one of those kind of people like me that believe in that do believe in equality and justice for everybody, and having to consistently, we're still in that time today. We see that in our society in 2018, and to see a film that kind of illustrates, you have two different sides. You have the side that, fights for equality and fights for justice, and you have the other side that fights against it and wants to, continue to spread their racism and their bigotry and their hatred. It's a war, and this film helps to illustrate that. So it's definitely a film to check out. Next is The Cure, with the young Joseph Mazzillo and the late Brad Renfro. I want to say this is one of the last films that Renfro did before he had his drug overdose years ago. It's a film about a young man with this young man here, played by Joseph Mazzillo, has contracted AIDS from a blood transfusion, and he befriends Brad Renfro, and they what they end up doing is they do their best to try to find him a cure, and they end up going on this big long journey, thinking that, believing that they're going to be able to find a cure to his AIDS. It's a heartbreaking film in a lot of ways. It's a very touching film. And I think definitely if you're into dramas that are going to be tearjerkers as well, you need to check out The Cure. And the last film I want to talk to you about today in my drama collection is Don't Cry, It's Only Thunder. This is a film about a young man who goes to Vietnam, and he ends up helping the young Vietnamese children in a village to get medicines and to find housing and to get clothes and to be fed. It's a very good film. How I came about this film is the main actor in this film, the main character is played by actor Dennis Christopher. And I really like Dennis Christopher as an actor, but I really hadn't seen him in too many things. After watching him in the 1990 version of Stephen King's It, I really wanted to see some other performances of Dennis Christopher, and so I came across this film, and I really enjoyed it a lot, and I think that he just does a really, really good job in this. This is probably one of his best roles. It's a very, very, very good film. So I definitely would check out Don't Cry, It's Only Thunder. And that is my list of drama films that I would consider to be unknown and unpopular that I think you should check out.